Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today's video is all about little ways in which we can save money when it comes to English paper piecing and patchworking and quilting. Whether you're on a budget or you're just looking to make little cutbacks, or perhaps you're a beginner and you don't want to invest a lot of money just yet because you're not sure whether you're going to continue with this craft, then I really hope today's video has got some tips that will help you. Fabric is definitely the most expensive item when it comes to patchwork and quilting and English paper piecing, and it's often the thing that we do want to spend our money on, but there are ways in which you can make your money go further when it comes to buying lovely fabrics. So for example, I really like using Liberty Tanner Lawn, and it is really expensive. It can be £26–27 a metre, but of course I don't buy it in metres, I buy fat quarters. There are places that you can buy fat 16ths or fat 8ths, so it's worth looking out for those. And I also mix the Liberty Lawn with other fabrics too. Now that is down to personal preference as to whether you like the mix in different fabric weights. It's something that I actually really enjoy because I love the scrappy look. So I mix it with solids such as Tilda solids or Art Gallery solids, and that way I'm using just small amounts of the more expensive fabric, but it also really sings when it is mixed with the solids because the solids help your eye be drawn to the prints, so I think it actually works really well. Now another thing that you can do is you can repurpose fabrics. You can use pretty much anything in English paper piecing. I would say denim would be too heavy, but you can use old bed sheets, repurpose old clothes, use anything you want. And because English paper piecing has some stabilisation behind it with the papers, you can use up scraps and you can use any fabric. The paper is going to give it that stability as you join all of the pieces together, and then afterwards when you've removed them you'll be quilting it to keep everything as it should be. So you'll find that scraps and different weights of fabric work really well in English paper piecing, whereas in traditional quilting and traditional patchwork piecing they wouldn't work as well because you get some element of stretch and distortion potentially. And of course, while we're on this subject, scraps, making projects out of scraps, tiny scraps, using every little piece, making small items, that is a great way to make something lovely but to keep it budget friendly. So keep all your scraps, look out for people who are trying to offload their scraps and take those in and use those up. If you're on a budget, you may know people online or in real life that have some scrap fabric that they want to get rid of, so that's always a great thing to do, and you can often get that for free. So really great EPP is for using up scraps. Lots of people like to make their own paper shapes when it comes to English paper piecing, and this is relatively easy to do. You can print off shapes from the internet and cut them out with scissors or the rotary cutter and a ruler, and there are cutting machines on the market such as a Sizzix machine and a Cricut maker, but they are costly machines and aren't really going to save you any money, but cutting out your own papers could save you some money. I personally nearly always buy pre-cut papers or pre-cut hexiform. I think that it's really worth doing that if you can, because they're going to be cut really accurately because they're done professionally, and it will save you so much time in the long run, particularly with large quilt projects. So I always opt for that if I can. But if you want to make your own, one way you can do it is by using acrylic templates. This set has holes in the center, and if you mark out those holes on your paper and then join them up, you will get a diamond that is about 1/4 of an inch smaller than the overall template, which means you can use the overall template for your fabric and then you'll have the perfect size paper for it. Also remember that you don't have to use brand new cardstock for this. You might have something that you could reuse from your recycling, perhaps an old book or a flyer, magazines, cereal packets. You could reuse some thin plastics to make acrylic templates. So do think about doing that before buying new cardstock. And if you have got pre-cut papers that you've bought, remember you can reuse them, so when you take them out of a project, keep hold of them and they can be used time and time again. And in this month's newsletter, I'm going to send out a free printable template for some different EPP shapes, so do sign up for my newsletter in the link below so you can receive that. You can also make your own templates for hand quilting from paper or card or thin plastic. I would say only invest in the acrylic templates or stencils if you know that you're going to use that particular shape a lot. The next place to find great things for patchwork and quilting in general is at supermarkets such as Aldi and Lidl. I found these small cutting boards at Aldi a few years ago now when they were having one of their special buys that was all about crafts. They're really lovely colours. They've got great measurements, inches on one side, centimetres on the other side. They're a lovely handy size and they've come in really useful. Another thing that I bought during that Aldi special buy for crafts was some storage boxes. Again, great for organising English paper piecing pieces, and they were lovely colours as well. You can separate all your shapes, you can have your pre-basted shapes ready. Really, really handy. The Aldi special buys often have yarn and craft kits and things like that, so definitely worth checking that out. The prices were really affordable. I think these boxes were about £5. I can't remember, it was quite a few years ago, but it's just worth looking out for their special craft buys. Another great place is Lidl. I got this set of pre-wound bobbins. They're wound with polyester thread. I'm not sure what weight the thread is, but there are 48 different colours in there. And I got that from Lidl for just a few pounds. I think it was last year, so I'm not sure if they've got them at the moment, but it's really worth looking out in places like Lidl and Aldi just to see what they do have in terms of craft and sewing items. Another good shop in the UK is Home Bargains, and I know that they're bringing out a range of sewing things as well. If you're on a budget and you would like lots of different colours for matching to your fabrics, then this set is really useful because there are so many colours in there. I actually really enjoyed stitching with this thread and would definitely use it again. There are definitely more expensive threads on the market, some that I sell myself on my own website, which are really lovely to stitch with, but I'm definitely not a thread snob at all. I would use this set and I think it's really great and an affordable way to have a variety of colours. And as you can see, the stitches didn't show too much and it was nice and strong thread, so a brilliant set for beginners. They also had another set. It's exactly the same thread, just on slightly larger spools, so really handy to have both sets, and then you can use it with your sewing machine as well. So these might not be available at the moment, but it's worth keeping an eye out at Lidl for these sewing sets. Now, when it comes to thread, if you want to invest in the really high quality thread, which I definitely recommend, then it's worth just starting out with a few colours. I like to use the off-white colour, pink and a pale grey. They blend really well with the typical colours of fabrics that I use. I use a lot of prints, so I find I can get away with just a couple of colours. If you're using a lot of solid fabrics or darker fabrics, then you may need different colours. So you might want a black or a navy blue or a red perhaps, but you don't need to get all of the colours at first. Think about what fabrics you're using and just cherry pick a few threads to go with them. Now, magazines can be a really lovely source of inspiration when it comes to our creating, and I've even had my work featured in a magazine in the past, and that was such an honour and a real highlight. But magazines can be really great for their free gifts sometimes. So I would recommend looking out for what they are giving away on the front of magazines. I got this great set of acrylic templates. As you can see, I've used the hexagon one. That was really handy, and it was free with the magazine, so I got the joy of the magazine at the same time. And there was another magazine that I bought once which had this mini cutting mat on it, and it's really lovely quality and such a nice colour. So I do recommend looking for what is going for free on magazines. Of course, you've got to pay for the magazine, but if the tools and notions that they're giving away are something that you haven't got and you think will be useful, then they're definitely worth buying. Having said that, magazines do take up a lot of space to store them, and then eventually you need to either pass them on to someone else or recycle them. So if you're not that interested in the free gifts, then I can really recommend an app called Readly. For £10 a month, which is about the price of 1.5 magazines a month, you can access digitally hundreds if not thousands of magazines on Readly, and you look at them through an iPad or a tablet or your phone, and it is just a fantastic resource full of inspiration. There's every craft magazine that you can possibly imagine: knitting, crochet, quilting, embroidery. There's gardening magazines and cookery magazines. There are magazines for every interest. And what is really great is the people in your house can have a profile as well, all within that same subscription. It doesn't cost any extra, so both my husband and my son read magazines on there too. And I just find it to be a really brilliant app. I've been a subscriber for about 6 months now, so I can really recommend it. I'll leave a link below if you'd like to take a look at Readly. It will offer you a free month, and then if you did continue with the subscription after that, it will give me a month for free. But that's not the reason why I'm suggesting it to you. There's absolutely no pressure to do that. You can cancel at any time. I'm just suggesting it because I think it is really great, and I'm sure lots of you will be interested in it. Storing all of our supplies, all our different papers and shapes and things is a real big task at times, and it can be quite costly. But I really encourage you to think about repurposing things that you might have thrown away. So tins are really great for storing all sorts of bits and pieces, as well as really nice boxes. So I have a box here that had some plates in it, and I've bought those years ago, over 10 years ago, but I kept the box because it was really pretty, and I have all my bag making supplies in there, so that's a really great box for that. And that box at the back there used to have a gift set in it. It was something I got for Christmas. It was all different shower gels and creams, and I used that for my ribbons and trims. It needs a tidy up but I've got the lid underneath if I ever want to close it up, so it's a really great box. So I encourage you to think about repurposing things like that to store your bits and bobs in, as well as plastic containers and things that you might also need to purchase. So as well as being little on time, small projects are little on budget as well. You're going to use less of everything to make something small, and I really enjoy small projects because you get that finish in a much shorter time, particularly if you also enjoy long-term projects. I think having something small on the go at the same time is a really nice way to get that quick win, and it is also budget friendly. So I really recommend having a go at something small like pin cushions, the needle book, the scissors case. I have a lot of free patterns, and most of them tend to be small items. Mini quilts, things like that, are just really fun to make and are also less of a time investment and less of a money investment. So really brilliant for being budget friendly. So I think after fabric, tools and notions are going to be the next thing that are going to cost us the most money when it comes to English paper piecing. And really, EPP is such a simple craft, you don't need a lot of tools and notions, but if you're thinking of dipping your toe into regular quilting, then you might be looking at rulers, and eventually you'll want to think about basting your quilt, whether it's an EPP quilt or not. So you might be thinking about more tools and notions rather than just the simple sewing needle and thread. So, for example, when it comes to basting your quilt, you've got the option of choosing to buy some spray baste, which is the option that I most frequently go for, or to choose to pin baste. Now, the spray baste is quite expensive, and the pins, it depends how many you buy or what brand you buy. They might cost you the same or a bit less to buy a set of pins for basting a quilt. But the spray baste is going to run out and the pins can be reused. So I think pin basting is probably more economical over time. Another thing to think about is basting your EPP shapes. I use the sew line glue, which is a great method and I will always stick to that. But if you're on a budget and not wanting to repurchase the refills, which do run out quite frequently, then thread basting might be the best option for you. You can just use a cheap thread, you can reuse old threads, and because they're removed afterwards. So it's worth considering what type of basting you want to do for your quilts and your shapes. There are so many great tools and gadgets on the market that you can be tempted to think that you might need to buy lots of things, but to save money when you're starting out, just buy the essentials. So a great ruler for cutting fabric and of course a rotary cutter. They're going to be really useful. I recommend a 45mm rotary cutter. That's a great size. It's going to cut smaller shapes but also strips of fabric. Some all-purpose scissors, so I like these Fiskars ones. I've had them for many years. They're a great size because they are quite small, so I like cutting my shapes out with scissors quite often. So I think they're a really great purchase and they're going to be useful for snipping threads and things as well. You can use them for everything. And then a couple of rulers, so having a smaller ruler like this one, which is 8.5 inches by 4.5 inches. That's a good size for cutting your shapes to be a bit smaller. The longer ruler, which is 24 inches by 6.5, is great for cutting your strips of fabric. Even a smaller ruler like this, which is 6.5 by 1.5, that's really great for cutting around your shape, so really useful. But I would say you probably don't need any more than that. 1 or 2 rulers will be great to get you started. That's it for this week's video. I really hope you found some useful tips for how to EPP and quilt on a budget. If you have any great tips, then please leave them in the comments below. A massive thank you to everyone who is supporting this channel over on Patreon, and also to those of you who have very kindly pressed the super thanks button. That really means so much to me, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.